70 degrees. Let's get some work done today. Alright guys, welcome back. I looked through my old videos, and as best I can figure, I did an overview on this sprayer, and I might have had 75 subscribers at that time. It was about 2 or 3 videos before my 100 subscriber video special that I did. So for you guys that have basically been following me since the beginning, this may be a little bit of redundancy if you're still here and still watching, but stay tuned. I want to answer some questions as far as the some of the costs. I did do some math last night, and I have some of the costs figured out as far as the per acre spring spraying program, so I'll get to that a little bit later. So this is my sprayer, and I'll get into the pros and cons here in the next clip. All right, so some of the questions you might ask about a sprayer. We'll start with some of the simpler ones with this one. Does it have electric controls for the boom sections? The answer, no. Does it have hydraulic fold booms that fold out on their own? The answer is no. Does it have hydraulic boom height to raise and lower the boom? No. Does it have any type of auto rate control? Answer, no. Does it have any type of guidance or GPS tracking on it to be able to spray? No. Does it have any type of chemical induction or anything like that? Nope. Does it have what else? No drip nozzles? No. Does it have the fast fill? Not really. What else can I think about that a modern sprayer would have? Does it have front and rear tank agitation? No. So I'll get into some of the pros here. So as far as the pros, does it have boom suspension? Yes, this does have a boom suspension. It's got a spring on each side with a hydraulic shock, so you can float across the ground. I used to have a Century sprayer, and if you know anything about Century sprayers, it originally had a boom that had chains, and the booms would hang on chains, and you were constantly welding those chains, or the boom where the chains mounted. I switched to a Hardy boom. I found a nice used one. I put the Hardy boom on. That did not have boom suspension, but it did have the tilt side to side. You could take the pin out and let your boom follow the contours. Oh, excuse me. So we have the boom suspension. We do have that. It's a 45-foot boom. It's not the best size boom for the farm here because we're using a 12-row corn planter, and 12-row and 12-row, you should have either a 60-foot boom or a 30-foot boom. This will do 18 rows, so you're still going to have 6 rows out on the end there that don't get sprayed, but it's not as big of a deal here with the way I do things because they are using GPS auto steer. So usually what I find is the rows pretty well all hold out. You don't get your tires into a row that might be a little bit zigzagged or anything like that. So for the future, if we ever do upgrade, I'm going to either look for a 60-foot or a 30-foot boom. Probably, I want to say a 30-foot would be a little bit more efficient for my operation, just because of a lot of my fields are circles and triangles and smaller. So using a 60-foot boom, you're going to have some overspray here or there. So we've got the foam marker system, and that's just because I put that on. It originally didn't have that, so that's a plus, I guess you could say. I got this crop care foam marker system. I made some videos on it, the installation. I got this from Zimmerman Farm Service. Put it on and haven't had any trouble with it last year, first year with it. Another pro for this sprayer. It's a 500-gallon tank, and I'm only pulling it with a little 60-horsepower tractor. You get 500 gallons of liquid nitrogen. You got a load on here. The way I get away with it, it does have these tandem wheels as far as going through the the fields, going through the rows with the tandems. Most of the weight on this sprayer is on these wheels. I got 4 tires on the ground, and I have rarely had any type of lifting of the drawbar. What you'll have more of is, let's say you fill it. Now, I only put 500 gallons in here of nitrogen one time, and I was on the level. But what I did notice was, usually I only put 400 in. That's the max I want to put in of nitrogen. But what I did notice, when you get down, let's say to like the 450, 400 mark, you get a lot more of the sloshing and the pushing. You can feel it push you a little bit. But again, we only do that on the level. When I do put on nitrogen on the hills, I am only about half full or even less. So I can get away with putting more weight in this, probably because of these tandem wheels. If I only had a single rear wheel, it would probably be a lot more action lifting on the drawbar, depending on how far back the wheel spacing is. Another pro is the pump. The pump on this makes very good pressure. I never had any problem with this pump so far. It works wonderful. It's a constant pressure pretty well. I don't have an auto rate control, but I have it calibrated that if I'm in first high spraying and about 15 to 1600 RPMs, as long as I can keep the RPMs rate at that 15 to 1600 RPM mark, I'm putting out about 20 gallon to the acre, and that's what I'm shooting for. So it's calibrated as best I know how, and I did a couple tests when I first got it, and I pretty well have it figured out as far as what it's going to put down, where I want to be at. So we do have a very good pump on this sprayer. And the other pro is, for as ugly as it looks and as wore out as it is paid for. So I don't owe anything on this, and basically it doesn't owe me anything either. So gonna run it another year. I'm thinking. I was looking at tons of sprayers. There's too many things I have to upgrade, and I have to slow down a little bit and figure out where I need to spend my money. Sprayer is one thing I am definitely gonna try to upgrade someday, and we'll have to figure that out as time goes on. So we'll get into a little bit more. I want to cover some of the costs. I know I had some questions on the costs, so let's get into it. All right, so a few people had asked me in the comments as far as my cost per acre for my spring burn down program for soybeans here. I did do some quick math last night, and for what I can come up with the pre-emerge and post-emerge, I'm looking at about $31 to $35 an acre. So it sounds like a whole lot. It's about 3 bushel of beans, give or take, to cover my herbicide program. But 3 bushels of beans, with very good weed control, you can make that up. You can get 3 bushels of beans if you have excellent weed control. And for $30 an acre, the way I'm set up now, there is no way I can do that in tillage. Just because of... now you have your fuel that you're going to burn, of course, but the equipment wise, if I was going to do full-on tillage the way I grew up doing tillage and the way I know how, I don't have a chisel plow, so I'd have to buy a chisel plow. I don't have a disc, I'd have to buy a disc. And I do have that Vibra-Shank, that International 45 Vibra-Shank, but it is not the best if you're just going to use that. You get too much residue, you're dragging it all over the place, and it's going to make a mess and a lot of long days trying to get it smoothed out. The other thing is the 986 isn't really set up for tillage. It's too light with that turbocharger. I have way too much horsepower, and the tires on the rear don't have much calcium in, and I don't have any wheel weights on it. So even though that Vibra-Shank is 15 foot wide or 16 foot wide, I can't use the wings. I did try it. I put the wings down, and the tractor, you won't stall the engine, you got the horsepower, but you're just going to sit there and spin your wheels. So it's not an ideal situation for tillage. So that $31 to $35 an acre is very attractive to me as far as my herbicide program, just because of not being equipped and having to buy all that equipment. Now long term, if you were going to stay tillage and do tillage your entire life, that's when it would pay for itself over the long run, I think, versus spraying. But I'm gonna stick with doing it this way. So basically today we're gonna try to get this ready. I don't know what all it's going to take right now. It did freeze. That was the other question I wanted to answer. Guys had asked if I had put RV antifreeze in. Yes, I did. I did put RV antifreeze in, and I think I had a little bit too much moisture left in the sprayer and not enough RV antifreeze. A lot of guys I talk to, they say they don't like the RV antifreeze, just put the green stuff in just because it's a lot better than the RV stuff. I don't know, but anyway, that's what happened. Everything was froze solid, so I don't know what problems I'm going to have once I get water in it. So right now, the first thing I want to do, so I'll demonstrate this on camera, I have to open the booms, and I want to take all the nozzles out and all the screens out, and I want to clean them all, and I'll show you how I do that here coming up. So let's get this boom open and get that filter off. So the first thing, you come over here, being that it's a manual fold boom, I do have a bungee on here to help hold the booms. If you don't, it's going to be all over the place. So first thing, when I get in the field, I got to take the bungee off. Then we got to take our boom section here, and depending on if you're on the hills or something, that gets pretty close to the ground and you might have to lift up on it. And I think you have to lift up on it over there to get it over the other boom. So there, it'll lock into place, and then we need to grab our second section here and lift that up. Oh, this is always the heavy part, and with not having no drip nozzles, this is when you get a bath if you don't do it right. All right, so we got the boom unfolded there. Then we got to come over to this side. My next sprayer is going to have hydraulic fold boom. I did decide on that. That is one thing I want. I'm not sure about the auto rate control yet. That's kind of up in the air. So same deal over here. Fold it out and switch hands here. All right, so the sprayer is open. Now, another thing I have to do when I'm in the field, this setup was put on by the previous owner, and I found out you have to use it or it's not going to work. These little ropes here are on bungees, and you have to take these ropes with the bungee, making sure that the bungee's not going to come off and knock your tooth out. And you got to come over here, and I can't do it one-handed. That's a lot of pressure. Anyway, you got to loop that loop on that rope around that right there, because these springs here are wore for the breakaway. And if you don't have these bungees on, going down a hill, in the hills here again, going downhill, your booms, next thing you know, your booms are going to be right up alongside you. No, it's back. If you're going uphill, they're going to fold back. They rarely ever come forward, just the way that spring is. They're going to go back. That's right. I'm dyslexic there. So if you're going up a hill, your booms are going to want to break away and come back. I have been messing around with the tensioner here. I thought about putting heavier springs on, but for a rope and a bungee, it works pretty darn good. If you have them hooked up, no issues. The other thing with the rope and the bungee, if you do accidentally get your boom off into the weeds or something and it tries to break away, it still lets it break away, and then as soon as it gets itself free, the bungees pull it right back to where it needs to be. So less trips getting off the tractor. All right, so I did say that this is a 45-foot boom. We've got nozzles on here at 20 inches and 30 inches. I do use this to top dress the nitrogen in the cornfields. We put our drop hoses on. I'll cover that once we do that. And I have done videos on that. I think I did a video setting up the sprayer for fertilizer or something to that effect. There is 2 no drip nozzles on here. Just because I couldn't get this regular T-Jet style on there. So to convert this all to no drip, it's not the best sprayer to do, just because the way this boom folds all together, it hits and you can't get the boom folded up. I've tried with some no drip and it just doesn't, this boom wasn't set up for it, the way it all folds up. So like I say, I'm gonna get cleaning these nozzles, so I guess that's where we'll end this segment of the video. If you're still watching, I have a couple other thoughts yet. All right, so we got to keep this video moving. It's getting a little long. So to clean these nozzles, you just get yourself a homemade sink here, and you're gonna add some water here. It's fairly warm water that I had brought down to do this job. Just get ourselves a sink established. And I stole some Dawn dishwashing detergent from the house. Don't tell the missus. So we'll add some of that. And now we can do the dishes on the sprayer, I guess you could say. So we'll just mix that up and find an old wore out toothbrush, and then it's a little bit cheaper than buying the spray brush nozzle. I will be putting some gloves on because there might be some residue. So let's get into it. Alright guys, so this job is incredibly time consuming. It takes a while. I try to only do one section of the boom at a time, so we're going to get them cleaned up and dried and back in the sprayer, so I will leave you there. Hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for tomorrow. Does it have a rinse tank? No. Does it have a hand wash tank? No.